One of my favorite inspirational stories is of a man named Nick Vujicic. Some of you actually might know Nick as the Australian evangelist who was born without limbs. And his story reminds me of this persistent widow in the parable of today's gospel. This widow who prayed for a result, a given result, and was only given the result after badgering this unjust judge over and over and over again, asking for what she wanted. Finally, the judge, out of frustration, finally gave her what she was asking for. Like this woman in the gospel, Nick also prayed long and hard and often that God would change his particular situation. But unlike this woman, God never answered Nick's prayer. At least not in the way Nick initially wanted his prayer to be answered. So for instance, when Nick was a boy, when he was about 7 or 8, he remembers praying, "Lord, please give me arms and legs so that I could be like my friends." Obviously, God didn't answer that particular prayer. And Nick likely could have prayed that prayer for hours and days and years on end without having the result he wanted. But one day, interestingly, when Nick was in prayer, he was praying through the Gospel of John. I think it was chapter 3. And during that reading of Scripture, during that prayer, God convinced him that despite the disability that he had definite plans for Nick. And God did, and Nick responded to that invitation from the Lord. And Nick has been spending the last decade or so giving hope and inspiration to literally hundreds of thousands of people, traveling the globe as a missionary and sharing the love of Christ. So while God never answered the particular prayer that Nick had for arms and legs, through constant prayer, through persistent prayer, Nick was able to realize that God had a plan in mind for Nick. And that's the lesson for all of us. If you're praying and praying for a certain result and you haven't gotten an answer yet, keep at it. You will either get what you're asking for, like this persistent widow in today's gospel, or the Lord will show you that he's got something else, something special in mind.